Good morning. Happy Thursday, everyone. Welcome back to the Bookstack Coffee Chat. Daly and Bickle here with you. So today is a glorious day here. It almost feels like spring instead of summer. Sitting out on my porch earlier this morning in my sandals and actually had to go grab a jacket, and my toes are still quite cold from being out there, which is a welcome reprieve from the humidity we'd had the past several days. So what have you been reading this week? Hopefully you've set aside a little bit of time this past week to get some reading in. Let me know in the chat what you're currently reading. This week I have a book that I want to share with you. It is called A Bookshop in Berlin by Françoise Frankel. I'm probably really not doing her name justice because I never could get the roll of the R's in my French class in high school. But this book is, the subtitle is The Rediscovered Memoir of One Woman's Harrowing Escape from the Nazis. So I know you're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but everybody does, right? So that really is what really got my interest, trying not to get the glare there. But the books and then the warplanes, reflected in the window panes, and the old-fashioned, black and white photograph type feel just really attracted me to this book first and foremost. Then, of course, it was about a bookshop, so I was interested based on the title. So those were the first two things that drew me in. But third, that it was a rediscovered memoir. So basically what that means is that she had written her memoir all these years ago. She started writing it in 45. I think it was finished in 1947. And it had been published in Switzerland, but it hadn't really gone anywhere beyond that. And it was rediscovered and published more widely recently. And so I was like, I really do enjoy some memoirs. Hadn't read one in a while. And so it combined all three of those elements, right? The World War II era that I'm interested in, a bookshop, and then memoirs. So that's why I selected this book. Would love to know, what makes you pull a book off the shelf and make you want to take it home, either from the library or buy it from the bookstore. I always am curious. So diving into this, today's topic is about false accusations. So the whole premise of this book is her recounting her true life experiences. She was originally from Poland and had studied in France. And then she and her husband, who isn't really talked about much in the book, there's a whole forward about that lack of talking about the husband. But anyway, she and her husband opened the first and only French bookstore in Berlin, Germany. So it's really interesting all that she had to go through to open a bookstore in Germany that only sold French books and magazines and newspapers. Because this was in the 1920s, so they were just recovering from the First War, World War I. The Germans still weren't, at that point when she was trying to open the store, very friendly toward the French. And so that was a whole aspect of history that I wasn't familiar with. So that's kind of starts the beginning of it, but then it quickly escalates into the persecution of the Jews in Germany in the 30s. So by 1939, she was escaping Berlin and escaped to Paris, which, if you are a World War II history buff, you know that the Germans then invaded France, and she then had to escape from Paris, and she went to a variety of different places throughout France in this book, trying to survive the persecution. And what was the problem was because she was a Jew from Poland. And so going into our theme today about false accusations, so many of the Germans and the French, because once the French were occupied, so many of them followed the German government propaganda, which was accusing Jews of doing all of these horrendous things. And so many people bought into it and believed it. And it was these false accusations that so many people, like Francois and others, had to go into hiding, had to try to escape. She herself tried to escape to Switzerland, and it gives all of those harrowing details. But it's just interesting to me, the whole mass mentality of how propaganda can be spread and people can just so almost gullibly believe it as truth without considering and rationalizing and getting to know people. It happens still today. No matter where you live in the world, it happens here in America, especially with our political divide the way it is. Everyone believes one thing about the other side, and it can be so frustrating, obviously, and sad. It's just, as she doesn't outright say it, but to get to know people, not everyone is the same. I know. Well, I imagine that everyone has been falsely accused of something in their lives. And most usually it's just, it's an offense that just hurts our feelings or our pride, but sometimes there are consequences of it. Back when I was in college, I experienced this firsthand. I was falsely accused of cheating in a class with a paper, and I was just so distraught. I had no idea where this had come from. The accusation came out of left field, but all of a sudden I was facing possibly being kicked out of college, which I had worked so hard to get into this school and so hard to keep good grades that this was just beyond my realm of comprehension. How did this happen? And it lasted for what seemed like forever, but it was just a couple of weeks, but still. It wasn't until the person who actually did steal my paper and copy it verbatim and turn it in as her own, and me unknowingly, I didn't know that she had copied it, and so I had turned in the same paper. Anyway, it all worked out. She, admitted to it, and I was able to stay in college, and so I'm very thankful for that. But, there are sometimes consequences of being falsely accused. And how do we handle that? Sometimes we just kind of back down, just harbor, these hurts. Sometimes we are confrontational and stand up to people. Sometimes we try to escape, like Francois did in this book. But, it took me to back to what I was reading this morning in the Bible, which is in the book of Acts. I'm still in the book of Acts. If you watched last week, I mentioned about that. But today I was reading in chapter 6, and it was about Stephen being accused of blasphemy. So Stephen was filled with the Holy Spirit, and he had been selected by the apostles to help with the divvying up of the daily distribution to the widows in the area, and also to help spread the word and grow disciples and all of that. So he was doing that. And it says in the Bible that he was, let me find that, a man full of faith and of the Holy Spirit, and that he was full of faith and power, did great wonders and signs among the people. And so he was busy doing all this good work. And all of a sudden, here come the council members, here come the people who were envious of everything that he was doing and the attention that he was getting for all these good things that the Holy Spirit was doing through him. And so they accused him of blasphemy. And we know that they accused him falsely because it says so. They secretly induced men to say, "We have heard him speak blasphemous words against Moses and God." And then they stirred up the people, the elders and the scribes. And they also set up false witnesses who said so and so. So, that was happening even way back then. It's still happening today about false witnesses and people being planted places. And what are we to do about that when that happens to us? Well, I think Stephen's a great example of how he didn't, just outright confront them, and he didn't, just fall into a heap of woe. He they asked him, are these things so? And instead of just simply saying yes or no, or, being aggressive or whatever, he just launched in to reminding them of the whole history of the Jewish people. And it got me to thinking about how, that was such an opportunity for him to witness to them, to share the good news with them and give them an opportunity to be saved. And so in our situations, and how when we are faced with false accusations and allegations, may we also try to look beyond our hurt and our surprise and our frustration, and look to it as an opportunity as well, and seek the Holy Spirit's guidance and how we can handle that situation to allow him to speak through us. So I hope that that encourages you a little bit today. I also wanted to just share this. This was fascinating to me too, in her book, A Bookshop in Berlin. She said when she was trying to escape to Switzerland, and so there were guides that you could pay to help get you from France into Switzerland, past the guards and past the fence and all of that dangerous stuff. And this one paragraph says, these guides had numerous tips and relied on assistance from locals, and even in some instances, the complicity of gendarmes, the police officers, and customs officers. They were the masters of a new form of trade, human trafficking. The profession of, quote, people smuggling, unquote, had just been born. And I thought that was interesting, how something we term today, which I thought was a relatively new phrase, is such a horrible thing. And it is, the human trafficking is terrible. But it actually started out as a good thing. Back then, it was people helping other people escape into freedom. So I just think that's interesting. I've always heard that, good things can always be twisted, and apparently that's the case. So I just thought that was really fascinating that now I don't know if that's true, if that was the very first case of that, but I just thought that was interesting that she put those exact terms in there. Of course, maybe the editors added that, but I don't think so. This is based on her diary, her book that she wrote. So anyway, I do recommend this book. One word, that there were, I think, 4 instances of swear words, which I'm not a fan of, but it wasn't just overt like the other books that I've said that I had to just stop reading. Yeah, so just word of caution out there. If you are one who doesn't want to read any of those words, there are a few in here. But overall, I highly recommend this book. And I had forgotten to put what part of Acts I referred to, Acts 6, verses 8 through 15. So if you want to look that up about Stephen. And also, before we close for today, just wanted to give you an update that the Bookstack is going to change a little bit in July. I've kind of alluded to some changes coming up. So I have a couple of new projects in July that I'm very excited about, which are going to be taking a little bit more of my time away from reading. I'm still going to be reading, believe me, but I won't necessarily have, the hour a day to read that I try to carve in. So I know that's not going to happen. So in the future, I think I'm going to, at least in July, bump it to every other week. So there will not be a Bookstack next week, but I will be back the following Thursday with what I've been reading. So since it's not going to necessarily be every week anymore, I highly encourage you, if you aren't already, to like my author page here on Facebook, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're watching on YouTube, so you can be notified when I'm going to be going live with the next Bookstack Coffee Chat. And in the meantime, feel free to, on those either channel, let me know, what books you're reading, what books you recommend. And I would love to promote more indie authors. So if you are an indie author, self-published author, know someone who, is a clean reads author, Christian author and has a book that you'd like me to look at, review, whatever, contact me, direct message me, put it in the comments, whatever, and let me know. I'd love to be able to support the fellow writers. So with that, I wish you all a beautiful day, a blessed couple of weeks, and I will see you later. Take care. Thanks for watching.